In this video, I will explain how to calculate the cross-price elasticity of demand. So let's jump into an example. This says, when the price of coffee increases from $2 to $3, the demand for tea increases from 100 units to 120 units. Find the cross-price elasticity of demand. So when we're trying to find the cross-price elasticity of demand, all it means is that when the price of one good increases, how does that affect the demand for another good? So in this case, we're saying the price of coffee is increasing. How does this affect the quantity demanded for tea? So does the demand go up or down, and how much does it actually go up or down by relative to the change in the price? So the cross-price elasticity of demand allows us to quantify this. So here's the formula that we can use to actually calculate it. So we say that the cross-price elasticity, denoted with a capital E and with good X and good Y, so the cross-price elasticity of good X and Y is equal to the change in the quantity demanded of good X divided by the average quantity demanded of good X divided by the change in the price of good Y divided by the average price of good Y. Now, specifically, the change in the quantity demanded of X is just equal to new quantity demanded of X minus the old quantity demanded of X. And then the average quantity demanded of good X is simply the new quantity demanded of X plus the old quantity demanded of X divided by 2. And similarly, the change in the price of Y, that's simply calculated as the new price minus the old price of Y. And the average price of Y is just the new price of Y plus the old price of Y divided by 2. So this looks like a lot of numbers, a lot of moving parts, but it's actually quite simple when we get down to it. So let's go ahead and fill in all of the values that we know to calculate this cross-price elasticity. So in this example, we'll say that good X, that can be T, because this is the one whose demand is changing. And good Y in the formula, that will be coffee, because that's the one whose price is changing. So for the new quantity, we're going to say the new quantity is 120. So this is the new quantity demanded for tea when the price of coffee increases. So we'll say 120 minus the old quantity demanded was 100. So we have 100. That's divided by the new quantity demanded plus the old quantity demanded. So 120 plus 100, and we're dividing that by 2. Then we're dividing all of that by the new price of Y. So remember we said Y is going to be coffee. So the new price is $3. So we'll say 3 minus the old price. The old price was $2. So we'll say minus 2 divided by, we have the new price plus the old price divided by 2. Now when we simplify this a little bit, the numerator comes out to 0.1818, and the denominator, this portion right here, comes out to 0.4. So our final cross-price elasticity is 0.1818 divided by 0.4, and that comes out to 0.4545. So this is our cross-price elasticity of demand. Now here's how we can actually interpret this number. When the cross-price elasticity of demand is greater than 0, we say that these goods are substitute goods, which means that one good can be, quote, substituted for the other. But when the cross-price elasticity of demand is less than 0, then we call those complement goods. In other words, the goods are complements of each other. So in this case, the cross-price elasticity of demand that we calculated, this 0.4545, this number is greater than 0. So we would say that coffee and tea are substitute goods. So all that really means is that we're substituting some of our coffee consumption with tea. So we're saying to ourselves, okay, the price of tea has increased from $2 to $3. So I'm going to buy a little bit less coffee, and maybe I'll buy a little bit more tea. So my quantity demanded for tea has increased. In other words, I'm substituting some of my coffee consumption with tea consumption. And here's one more thing to remember. The higher the value of the cross-price elasticity of demand, the greater the ability to substitute one good for the other when the price of one of the goods increases. So in other words, the greater this value is, the more that we're willing to substitute one good for the other. So if this value was even higher, it means we're even more willing to substitute more of our coffee consumption with tea consumption. So that's the idea with the cross-price elasticity of demand. We're just saying how much does our demand for one good increase or decrease when the price of another good increases.